leaving Cinnabale, which he helped set up 9 years ago after Diana was killed in a Paris car crash, which means forget me not in the local language, which apparently Harry forgot about.
Repatriate the charity's focus back to Africa, build local fundraising networks, and cut the bloated overhead. Logical, principled, long overdue. Then things exploded publicly. Chandoko went on television and accused Harry of orchestrating a campaign of bullying
locals. It proves that the readout, the operational notes, which they leaked to the mainstream media in Australia, are another tissue of lies. And I think actually this is the most disastrous start to the Down Under.
Now, here is where the story gets complicated and where the real drama lives. Dr. Sophie Chandoka was appointed chair of, and to Bally's board.
Now this is going to spark a total revolt amongst
her, and one of the most credentialed people to ever run that organisation. She arrived with a serious vision and the qualifications to back it up. Her position was clear. The charity was hemorrhaging money in London, while the children in Lesotho and Botswana received a fraction of what was being raised. The fundraising model, champagne polo events in Florida, glittering galas attended by celebrities and billionaires, looked spectacular on Instagram and delivered relatively little to the actual mission.
Is Coogee Beach with the Duchess giving our reporter a wave. Here's a wave. Hi. Hope you loved Australia. Let's get straight to Sarah Stewart at Coogee Beach. Sarah, they've just arrived at the airport.
Yeah, they have, Lizzie. Look, I am that daggy reporter. I get way too excited by these things, but they came out of the Intercontinental. They were in the convoy of 3 cars. They stopped at the traffic lights. I saw my moment. I yelled out to Meghan. She looked over, gave us a big smile and a big wave. Harry was sitting next to her in the back seat of the car. He also gave us a wave. But from here, they went to the airport and they have just been seen.
Now, here is where the story gets complicated and where the real drama lives. Dr. Sophie Chandoka was appointed chair of, and to Bally's board. She is a Zimbabwean, born lawyer, a former executive at Meta, and one of the most credentialed people to ever run that organisation. She arrived with a serious vision and the qualifications to back it up. Her position was clear. The charity was hemorrhaging money in London, while the children in Lesotho and Botswana received a fraction of what was being raised. The fundraising model, champagne polo events in Florida, glittering galas attended by celebrities.
Oh, Sarah, you might be a daggy reporter, but you are our daggy reporter. We love you. Thank you.
Oh.
Talk to you soon.
All right, well, Prince Harry and Meghan have spent a whirlwind week meeting, greeting and schmoozing their way across Australia's southeast.
Going into the airport via the loading dock, they were shaking some hands and in they went. So the tour is officially over. They are heading home. But last night we saw them out and about. They went to the rugby game, watching the Waratahs there. More waves, more thumbs up there, a couple of drinks as well. Prior to that, Meghan was here at the Intercontinental in Coogee doing a...
So while the pair put on quite the show, it was under very different circumstances from their 2018 visit. Joining us now to discuss their royal report card is Bronte Coy, royal correspondent for news.com.au. Good morning to you, Bronte. The last time they were on Aussie soil, they were royals and it was a royal tour. Did you notice any difference this time around now that they're non-working royals?
Well, there were a lot of differences, although, and this is what struck a lot of people, there were a lot of similarities. They aren't working royals, but it did have a lot of hallmarks of a royal tour. The key difference was, and I was on the 2018 tour as well, so it's good to have that comparison, but the key difference was there wasn't a lot of that public-facing sort of activity that we see with royal tours where they do the walkabouts and the meet and greets. With that said, there were quite a few opportunities for people to see them. We saw the footage of them at Bondi. That was quite chaotic, actually, everyone just joining that scrum. And there were a few opportunities for people in that regard, but that's the key difference, was a lot of it was actually behind closed doors.
To understand why this lawsuit hits so differently from everything else we have seen, you need to understand what St. Arvely actually is and what it meant to Harry personally. In 2006, a 21-year-old Prince Harry travelled to Lesotho, one of the smallest, poorest nations on Earth, land locked inside South Africa, carrying a devastating reality with him. At the time, Lesotho had one of the highest rates of HIV and AIDS infection anywhere in the world. Orphaned children, shattered communities, an entire generation being erased silently with almost no global attention. Harry had spent part of his gap year working at an orphanage there. He came back changed. He co-founded Sentabali alongside Prince Siso of Lesotho in honour of both their mothers, Diana, who had spent her final years tearing down the stigma around AIDS with her bare hands, and CISO's mother, Queen Mama Hatto. The name Sentabale means "forget me not" in Sesotho, a direct personal tribute to Diana.
That's what struck me on this tour. I've got to say, I went into it thinking anything could happen here. Meghan and Harry, the one thing they're very good at, whether you love them or hate them, and truly there are not a lot of people that sit in the middle of that spectrum. But either way, I just had no idea how this was going to unfold, how they'd be received. And the truth is, people were really happy to see them. They were handpicking events, obviously, with communities that they worked with, Harry with the military stuff, and they were working a lot with youth mental health. So obviously, these groups were really happy to see them because it is work they've been championing for years. But anything could have happened. We don't know. We never know when the royals step out like that, and particularly because there has been so much controversy around them in recent years. But from what I saw, I was waiting and just watching and trying to see what was going to happen. But people were really excited to see them, and it was a very warm engagement.
They've won over some people.
Well, look, I have to say, I covered them in Los Angeles post-Megxit, and I felt like I did a lot of trips up to Montecito because there was the Oprah interview, there was the Netflix doco, things that I think really turned people off. But this week, I enjoyed watching them go around. I thought the charitable stuff, the sailing with the Invictus sailors, going to the Children's Hospital, I felt like it was really well received. Did you feel that too?
It was pretty charming, I have to say. I was the same. Going in, I didn't know what to expect, but I was quite close with them for 4 days. I was up close and personal watching it happen. And it really was one of those things where you look at it and think, if things were different, if things had all gone differently a few years ago when they had the big split with the royal family in terms of working with them, they really were an asset. It could have been great, and the royal family has, much fewer working members at the moment. So when they're out and about, they are really good at it. It is a job that Harry was raised to do, and you can see it when he's doing it.
Now, here is where the story gets complicated and where the real drama lives. Dr. Sophie Chandoka was appointed chair of, and to Bally's board. She is a Zimbabwean, born lawyer, a former executive at Meta, and one of the most credentialed people to ever run that organisation. She arrived with a serious vision and the qualifications to back it up. Her position was clear. The charity was hemorrhaging money in London, while the children in Lesotho and Botswana received a fraction of what was being raised the fundraising model. Champagne polo events in Florida, glittering galas attended by celebrities and billionaires looked spectacular on Instagram and delivered relatively little to the actual mission.
Cars at Moana Pacifica. Now kickoff's at 7:35, but earlier Meghan made a VIP appearance at a $3,000 a head wellness retreat at the Intercontinental in Coogee. That's where the pair is actually staying while they're here in Sydney. Tonight's match marks the final stop on their royal itinerary. It's expected they'll be leaving the country. Veterans, the charity the Prince fought for and founded.
They make us feel so comfortable sitting with them. It was sort of like catching up with old friends.
And what a fitting event to do on the final day of the tour, sailing on Sydney Harbour and visiting our very own crown jewel, the Opera House. Awesome. It was 3 cheers for the royals.
Not a vanity project. This was not a name attached to a ribbon cutting. Since 2010 alone, the annual Polo Cup raised over £11 million. This was one of the very few patronages Harry chose to keep after his dramatic split from the royal family in 2020 when he walked away from the palace. From William, from Charles, from his titles and his duties and his country. He kept Santa Ballet. He said it mattered. He said it was personal. And now that same charity has filed defamation proceedings against him in the High Court. The charity named after his mother's final legacy.
Earlier, a private moment with the survivors and the saviours of the massacre on the sand, whether face-to-face or on the phone, the royal touch from a healing hand.
Beautiful that they've come and are making an effort.
We're just here to support the lifeguards, everything that they did on that day and every day.
But the biggest splash here came from Meghan herself, a Bondi hit from go to woe, and at times getting lost in a whole sea of selfies.
She's cuddling babies.
Harry was a hit here too, and full of sovereign swagger.
Harry, good to see some English. Good to see some English.
Harry,